or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently. We have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put two dukes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Tamir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coons. The white man will go nuts if he cash you. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
Queen.
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queen.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Ahmadiyyah.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin?
Ahmadiyyah.
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They're trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
I'm
Queen.
getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation.
Queen.
All right, hello everyone, Grand Rising. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right, let's see who's in here. 504 Nola, Dangerous, Hadassah. All right, Claudette, Timothy, G from the Land, Deronda, Jeff ATL, Just Anticipate. All right, Ladybug, let's get into it. 504 Nola's in the house. Shout out to all of my loyal royals. I see you, Nessa G and Jeff ATL. And shout out to everyone tuned into the Queen. And a big shout out to my moderators because y'all know they be putting in work. All right, I see you, Mel. TC Dan is here. Okay, so before we get into it, we're going to have a brief word from my sponsor. Hey, Gwen. But also, I want to make an announcement because unfortunately, this is a very hard day today because last night, as soon as I got off the live, I was informed that our beloved brother and my friend and moderator, Silent D, passed away. Okay, I did not know this. I had been calling him and emailing him for days, and I had not heard back. So sadly, Silent D has passed away. And so this stream, this broadcast is dedicated to him. And I would like for everyone that's here to please keep his family lifted up in prayer. Okay, thank you. I don't want to linger on this because I want to be able to make it through the live. Okay, so with that all being said, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, and don't forget that she sells a beard oil. All right, so with that all being said, let's get into it. Because you all's President Trump, oh my gosh, there's no words to even describe him at this point. Okay, we're going to get into this disastrous speech that he gave at the UN, how he called out these other countries, talking about your countries are going to hell. I'm sorry. This country that Trump is running is already in hell. So it's the nerve of him for me. Okay, we're going to get into that in just a second. But before we do, um, let's talk about this story of this 11-year-old Black child who has been expelled from school for a year for doing the right thing. Now, this young man got to school and one of his classmates had brought a weapon. He knew how to disarm the weapon, in which he did, and then he like hid the pieces or whatever so that the child couldn't put it back together and no one would get injured or whatever. And then when it was all found out, because he didn't report it to the school or whatever, and because he also had his hands on the weapon, he got expelled as well as the other student. Okay, so let's get into the report about this. And everyone, please don't forget to like and share and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you have not been receiving your notifications, please be sure to double check and make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. Okay, because y'all know that people mysteriously become unsubscribed.
What am I to do? He's 11 years old, seventh grade, never been in trouble before.
A Lansing mom is pleading for her son to be reinstated in school after she says he was expelled for possession of a weapon.
They kicked him out of school for the whole year. Online schools are honoring their decision, nor did they provide us a different resource or a different avenue to go.
Savitra McClurkin says her son is being punished for disarming and dismantling a gun that another student brought to the Dwight Rich School of the Arts back in May, and for not speaking up about it right away.
He didn't want to implicate himself in it, nor did he want to tell on the person that actually brought the firearm. Because he knows firearms aren't supposed to be in school.
He was able to disarm and disassemble the gun because of his hunting background. McClurkin says in the moment, her son was scared and thought he was helping the other students around him.
It's devastating because he's a bright kid, and all he wants to do is be a kid. And as a parent, I feel like I may be more devastated than him.
At Thursday night's board meeting, the Lansing School District declined to comment on the issue, even after McClurkin took the stand during public comment.
They are setting my child up for failure. They're setting him up to be a statistic. And I've been doing everything in my will and my power to keep him from that. After 180 days, they may or may not reinstate him. So then what?
We might have a serial killer on our hands.
Okay, that is such a darn shame. First of all, that is really a shame. For doing the right thing, that's the thanks that he gets. Okay, so anyway, let's get into it. Treese, thank you for your kind words and so sorry for your loss. Love you, Queen and Royals. And I love you too, beloved, and I appreciate you and thank you for your kind words and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, with that all being said, this is absolutely egregious to me, okay? This is all crazy. Okay, so Sabrina McClurkin, that's her name, says she has been trying to enroll her son, Shakur Everett, into another school ever since he was abruptly kicked out of Dwight Rich School of the Arts in Lansing in May. Okay, so this happened in Michigan. I can't help but think that if this were a white student, this would never have happened. Okay, this would never have happened. So anyway, she says she's upset with everybody. I'm mad at the teachers, administrators, as well as the city because they did not handle this right. Now, in a statement, the Lansing School District said it issued its decision after a thorough investigation, including review of video evidence, numerous witness statements, and careful deliberation, as well as a disciplinary hearing. They say the incident happened after an unidentified student allegedly brought a loaded gun to the middle school. McClurkin said the student pulled out the gun in a bathroom and gave my son a firearm. Like, here, take this, hold on to this, she said. Shakur, who knows how to hunt and learned about gun safety from his godfather, knew the weapon was not allowed in school. Shakur's natural reaction was, "There's no way I'm going to hold on to this gun all day," his mother said. He proceeded to go to class and dismantle it in class. There was a teacher in class and everything. People were around and everything. So after her son took the gun apart, McClurkin says, he put it inside of a heater in the classroom and threw the bullets in a garbage can. He didn't want it on his person, but he didn't want nobody to mess with it. This is what she said about why her son dismantled the firearm. Asked why Shakur did not immediately tell an adult about the gun, McClurkin said it was because he was scared and was never taught what to do in that situation. Other students eventually told an administrator about the firearm, she said. The district said in its statement that the full account of the incident has not been reported, but that it could not comment further because of privacy laws, saying disciplinary action would not have been warranted for disarming another student. Please know, however, that the safety of our students and staff remains our paramount interest, and decisions will continue to be made in accordance with that principle. Now, according to the district, police took the student who brought the firearm into custody. Lansing police did not immediately respond to requests for comment on Tuesday. Now, McClurkin appeared at a Lansing school board meeting Thursday to try to get answers. They say McClurkin told NBC News that she's still fighting to resolve the situation, and she also accused the district of failing to give her an alternative option for her son. Since May, he has been denied admission to 4 schools because of the expulsion on his record. In the meantime, she's keeping him busy with sports and an unaccredited online schooling program. She says they really just did not just my son, they did me wrong too. All I'm trying to do is just be a good parent and make sure that my son is getting an education. And also, she has also said that her mother, the grandmother of the child, Shakur, is having to take off work so that she can stay at home with him. And it's just a darn shame because whatever work he's doing in this online school, these classes, it's not going to be applicable when he goes back to school, whatever school he gets to go to, because it's not accredited. Okay? It's not accredited. So he's not going to get any credit for that work. This is all crazy. Now, I knew he was expelled. DJ Big Six says just homeschool. Well, that's what she's doing. DJ Big Six, were you even listening? The lady said that the homeschool programs will not accept him because he was expelled. Okay? And then Vince I Am from the UK, hey beloved, says Queen has been advocating for homeschooling for a long time. Yes, I absolutely have. Okay, because these are the types of things that happen to little Black children in these nefarious schools, which are, again, the school to prison pipeline. Okay, so please pay attention. So with that all being said, Jonetta said listening is fundamental. Okay, exactly. Yeah, so none of the homeschool programs or regular schools will allow him in because of the expulsion. Okay, so this is all crazy because I felt like, that she would at least be able to get him in a good online program, but no, that's not even the case. This was not even accredited. So it's not going to be any credits for it at the end of the day. Okay, so Very sad to hear that. Now let's talk about Malachi Mitchell, because Malachi Mitchell is a young man who, you all tell me what you think about this story, because I'm not sure what I think at this point. This young man was supposedly meeting up with someone. With that all being said, something happened. There was some sort of altercation, supposedly. The young man ended up losing his life. But what I find interesting is this: the fact that the young man not only lost his life, he was killed by the person who met up with him to purchase the firearm. And then the person not only killed him, but they drove off with his dead body in the car. And they're saying they did that because they were afraid. Okay, so you all, let's listen to it and you all tell me what y'all think, because this sounds real crazy. Because there's no way in the world I'm driving around with a dead body in my car, especially if I am the one who just had to kill him. Okay, please make it all make sense. So let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Hold on, where's my volume? Okay, there it is.
Now at 9, a Douglas County man will not face charges after a gun sale turned deadly. The district attorney's office announcing today that the man acted in self-defense in the shooting that killed this man, Malachi Mitchell. Atlanta News First reporter Chelsea Beinfor is live at the Douglas County Courthouse tonight. And Chelsea, the DA's office releasing new information in this case today?
Yeah, Tracy, they say the two men met up for a gun sale. It ended with one of them being shot and killed. That shooter has now been cleared of all wrongdoing, but this happened months after Malachi Mitchell's family campaigned for charges to be brought against that other man.
This is a tragedy all around. One young person lost their life, and another has to live with the fact that they had to take a life.
Douglas County District Attorney Dalia Racine announcing Tuesday that no charges will be filed against the man who shot and killed 20-year-old Malachi Mitchell.
And the evidence demonstrates that the driver was acting in self-defense.
In January, Douglas County deputies pulled over a car. Inside, they found a driver and a dead passenger, later identified as Mitchell, with several gunshot wounds to the head. Racine says the two men had met up for a gun sale, but Mitchell allegedly tried keeping his firearm after the other man paid him $800 in cash.
The driver stated Mitchell started to exhibit strange behavior and that the driver told him to calm down. Soon thereafter, Mitchell lunged at the driver, trying to grab the gun that was just sold. Fearing for his life during this attempted robbery, the driver shot Mitchell as he leaned over him.
Authorities say the driver then sped off with Mitchell's body inside the car.
Because he was scared to call the police, as he was a young Black male covered in blood with a dead body in his car. And he was afraid that he may be killed upon being stopped.
How can you sleep at night knowing you took somebody's baby away from them?
For months, Mitchell's mother campaigned for the DA's office to press charges against the other man involved. But Racine says the case is now closed.
These decisions are never made lightly, but it is our duty to follow the evidence as we did in this case.
The district attorney also says evidence points to Mitchell being a known gang member. I did speak with his mother on the phone this afternoon, who said she didn't have any comment right now, but was sounding like she was disappointed with today's decision. Reporting live in Douglas County, Chelsea Beinfor, Atlanta News First.
Okay, so that sounds really crazy. Now, the person who shot him in the back of the head, is what they say. That he was shot in the back of the head like multiple times. And says that the person gave him $800 to purchase the gun. I'm just curious if the $800 was found on his person. I just have questions, because why would you drive off with the body in your car? And if you're going to purchase a firearm from someone that you don't even know, they're someone that you've been, communicating with online, why would you meet them off by yourself? Like people just do the dumbest things. Yeah, something is a right, Swift. I have to agree. And Jeff said there wasn't no GD self-defense. I don't think it was either. Here's the thing. You know how these things usually turn out? I'm sorry, but in the stories that I've reported on about situations like this, it usually isn't the seller who's the criminal. It's usually the person who comes to make the deal, who comes to purchase something. They really don't have the money. They never intended to actually purchase it. They came there to rob the person. I don't believe this story for some reason because I just can't see you getting in the car with this person. They give you the weapon. Now, if they had nefarious intentions, why would they give you the weapon? They could have just pulled the gun on you and said, give me the damn money and get out before I shoot you. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make sense? I don't believe it. It sounds crazy. At the end of the day, if the person selling the gun didn't want to really sell it and just wanted to rob the person, why put the gun in the killer's hand? Could have just pulled it on him. Soon as they got in the car, you could have locked the doors, pulled the gun on him and said, give me your money. Empty out your pockets. Where's the cash? You could have done any of that. Like, this totally makes no sense. Okay, and I believe that the DA knows that it makes no sense. Okay, that's what I believe. Now, here's the thing. Was that other person black? Because I don't believe that either. And here's why. Because Douglas County is very racist. And if they don't charge the person, which they didn't in this case, we're never going to see who that person is anyway, because they're not going to release the name or the photo if the person isn't charged. So how do we know that was really another black person? I'm sorry, I don't think they would have taken a black person's word saying that somebody dead sitting up in your car, you shot him and killed him and drove off because you're black and you're covered in blood. Now, that could be true, but I don't believe it. I'm sorry, I know how Douglas County gets down. Trust me. I promise you I do. So with that all being said, I have several questions. It sounds sketchy. Okay, it sounds to me like the person who came to claiming they're going to purchase the gun, it sounds to me like they didn't even have the money, perhaps, and they wanted to steal it. Hold on, breaking news, Queen. Multiple people have been shot and killed at Dallas ICE office. Hold on. Thank you for that tidbit of information. I know you're lying. Hold on. Ooh, this is all crazy. Yep, 26 minutes ago and 20 minutes ago. Okay, thank you, beloved. Let's get into it. What's really going on? And Trump's talking about other countries going to hell. No, Trump, this country's already in hell.
And then committing suicide, which underpins everything of the whole event. So I think you're going to find out the guy's suicidal. Likely his tactic was developed, after watching these other shootings, the latest one with Mr. Kirk. So whether or not he called in the earlier bomb threat to this place remains to be seen. But he's screaming the motive at us from what he wrote on the bullet cartridges.
Jim Kavanaugh, thank you very much for your expertise and analysis here. Again, this is after officials on the ground in Dallas updating on that shooting at an ICE facility just this morning. That will conclude our NBC News special report, but we will have more coverage ahead on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online at NBC.com and your local NBC station, as well as on Nightly News tonight. I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you for watching.
Okay, I guess we got here at the end of it. Hold on, I got to find out what exactly went on here. Hold on, beloveds. Let me see if they have a press conference or something going on. Here we go. ICE acting director confirms details of shooting at Dallas ICE facility. Okay. This is all crazy. Hold on, beloveds. Oh my God, I hate when this happens. I literally hate when this happens. Hold on. Okay, sorry, beloveds. My whole tab just closed out. I hate when that happens. It's so annoying. Okay, here we go.
Sadly, for these active shootings to take place in schools, in churches, and various other facilities. The public is concerned, as they should be, but law enforcement is perhaps even more concerned because the job that they have, the burden that they have, is to protect citizens at all times. And so we're sitting down across the table, oftentimes discussing or having discussions about how to beef up security, but there's only so much that can be done with limited budgets, with limited manpower. And so the bottom line here is they're trying to do the best that they can given the circumstances, but there is no question that these incidents, brings the level of intensity and the tension in the law enforcement community to a higher point.
So one other question for you, just to clarify, the Prairie Land Detention Center, which was the site of an attack on July 4th down in Johnson County in Alvarado, which is again in North Texas. We know that just this week that the defendants were facing terrorism-related charges due to that alleged pre-planned ambush of that ICE facility. What kind of charges could we be looking at here for a potential active shooter type situation?
Well, assuming that the individual is still alive, I would say that you're probably going to have to, law enforcement is going to have to identify and find out what the motive behind this was. Was this part of a coerced attack with other people being involved? Were there other people helping this person out? Was this an ideological issue versus a personal issue? All of those things have to be ruled out. But assuming that the suspect will still be alive, I would say to you that all of those factors are going to govern the prosecutor as to what charges are going to be brought up. But, time will tell.
Well, another incident that we want to kind of bring back up just to get some context here. Back in August, the Dallas field office was threatened with a bomb threat that we're just wondering, we're talking about threats in this case, this continues to happen. How is this possible? A bomb threat there, they're showing up with guns and snipers and things like that. What is the overall response to these things that continue to happen?
Well, first of all, there's very, sadly enough, there's very little that we can do to prevent those instances from taking place. But secondly, what I can tell you is that there are protocols and then protocols, right? So in the law enforcement community, we know that things can happen very quickly. And in our job, those of us that work with law enforcement in the criminological sense, we actually try to help them understand what possible threats there are. So we have to imagine the unimaginable. We have to think about the unthinkable. We have to oftentimes sit down and say, are you ready for this eventuality? Could this happen? Are these things possible? And then law enforcement's job is to ensure that they have a plan to prepare themselves for that. And then when or if it does happen, address it immediately.
Just to jump in real quickly, I know we are streaming this coverage live on CBS Texas as well as CBS News Texas and TXA 21. I just want to give our viewers a quick update on what's happening. Dr. Del Carmen, just stay with us just for a second. We want to give viewers an idea of the scene they're looking at. This is 35E at Empire Central in Dallas, right to the southwest corner of Love Field. So this is a very populated, very heavily traveled area during the morning commute. That large police activity you see there is from, quote, multiple people being shot during a shooting at ICE's field office in Dallas on Wednesday morning. That is the quote from a senior Homeland Security official that spoke to CBS News earlier this morning. The Dallas ICE facility where the shooting occurred was known as a field office, which also serves as a temporary detention center, mainly for processing and holding for immigration detainees before being transferred to other detention facilities. So again, we are hearing that multiple people were shot as a result of an active shooter situation at the ICE facility in Dallas, right off of Stemmons Freeway.
And just if you could take a look at your screen too as well and walk on over and just take a look, you could see that this is a very heavy police presence. There are dozens of cop cars that you see lined up along the freeway here. It just goes to show you the magnitude of the situation. Again, multiple people shot here at this Dallas ICE field office. Again, a temporary holding center for those there at this detention facility.
And to give you a timeline, so we've been talking to Alex Del Carmen, who is a criminology professor at Tarleton State. Dr. Del Carmen, we know back in July we had the attack at the Johnson County Prairieland Detention Facility. That was an ICE facility, and then in August, or earlier, just a little over a month ago, we had that Dallas field office threatened by a bomb threat. And now we have this just basically a couple of weeks later. What are you seeing and feeling when you hear that timeline kind of illustrated for context?
I mean, it's obviously concerning in the sense that we see a string or a pattern here where many of these facilities are being targeted, right? So in the end, what we have to do is ensure that law enforcement is ready for the next eventuality, and we have to start.
Okay, so they're saying that these facilities are being targeted. Yeah, and that's exactly what it sounds like. Okay, so now here's the thing. They have a timeline on here, so let's talk about it with the live updates. Dallas ICE shooting, 2 victims dead, 1 injured, shooter deceased. Okay, 2 ICE detainees have died, and a 3rd is in critical condition after being shot by a sniper in Dallas early Wednesday morning. Now, the shooting happened just after 6:30 a.m. at the Dallas ICE facility on North Stevens Freeway. The identity of the shooter has not yet been released. They say the sniper died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound early Wednesday morning after he shot 3 ICE detainees at the Dallas ICE facility from a rooftop. This is all according to law enforcement officials. Okay, they confirmed 2 of the ICE detainees were dead and the 3rd was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Police sources say the sniper, identified as a white male, was armed with a rifle on the roof. He shot himself as agents approached. The investigation is ongoing. Now, the Dallas Police Department and other officials are preparing to give an update on the shooting at a Dallas ICE facility. So they say you can watch the full news. Okay, now, so they said 9:45 a.m. Okay, in his first post on social media about the shooting, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said the state fully supports ICE. He promised that the shooting would not slow arrests, detentions, or deportation of illegal immigrants. Okay, so he posted that on social media. And then U.S. Senator John Cornyn called the shooting horrific and said he would keep everyone involved in his prayers. He also promised a full investigation. He posted on social media saying, horrific. While law enforcement investigates, I'm keeping everyone impacted in my prayers. My staff have been in touch with federal and local officials in Dallas, and we will make sure all resources are brought to bear in the investigation. Thank you to all first responders. Okay, they say FBI sources told Fox 4 the shooter was on the roof of the law firm building behind the Dallas ICE facility and fired into an unmarked van with an ATF driver who was bringing detainees to the facility. Investigators believe they know the identity of the shooter, but they're still working to confirm and verify the information before releasing his name to the public. Okay, then at 9:15 a.m., they say Dallas police and Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson are expected to hold a news conference soon to release more information about what happened on Wednesday morning. Meanwhile, Congressman Mark Vesey said that his office has the victim in their prayers. Now, Fort Worth police said the shooting was uncalled for and deeply disturbing. They said the violence that occurred in Dallas, Texas this morning is uncalled for, and moments like this are deeply disturbing as it creates more division in our community at a time when the focus needs to be on how we can come together. We continue to ask our community. To pray. Okay, so they say at 9 a.m., 2 ICE detainees were confirmed dead, 1 hospitalized, and the suspect is deceased. I'm reading this backwards, sorry, but this is the way I just realized it. Okay, so anyway, at 8:30 a.m., they say Dallas police said they have made an official statement regarding the shooting. Police responded to the call at the 8100 block of North Stevens Freeway around 6:40 a.m. The suspect opened fire at the facility from a nearby building. They say U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance posted on X about the attacks on law enforcement and ICE agents. He says the obsessive attack on law enforcement, particularly ICE, must stop. I'm praying for everyone hurt in this attack and their families. Then Attorney General Ken Paxton posted on X about the incident saying, "Join me in praying for the victims of this heinous shooting. We will continue to do everything in our power to combat the alarming increase of targeted attacks against ICE and all law enforcement by evil, twisted individuals." Senator Ted Cruz, "My team and I are closely monitoring the situation. We're praying for the swift recovery of those injured, and we're deeply grateful to the brave first responders who rushed to the scene." Who is this here? Secretary Kristi Noem says there was a shooting this morning in Dallas at ICE detention facility. Details are still emerging, but we can confirm that there were multiple injuries and fatalities. Okay, and then there was a bomb threat in August. An individual was arrested in late August, threatening ICE officers with what the individual claimed to be a detonator on his wrist in Dallas, Texas. And on Monday, August 25th of 2025, the Federal Protective Service reported a bomb threat against an ICE facility in Dallas. The facility houses ICE's Dallas field office, as well as enforcement and removal operations. A male identified as 36-year-old Bratton Den Wilkinson arrived at the reporting entrance of the Dallas field office and claimed to have a bomb in his backpack at approximately 6:37 p.m. Wilkinson showed the security officer what he claimed to be a detonator on his wrist, which issued a shelter in place for the facility. Now, the officer called 911 and local police responded with a bomb squad. Wilkinson was taken into custody by local law enforcement and charged with making terroristic threats. Okay, and he also is a person who doesn't look like me because they have a picture of him being detained by police. Now, Alvarado ICE Detention Center ambush. At least 16 people were charged for an attack on an ICE detention center in Alvarado in Johnson County on July the 4th. Now, they say, according to a federal complaint, several of the defendants were dressed in black military-style clothing while protesting. The protesters began shooting fireworks at the detention center. 2 people broke off from the main group and began to spray graffiti on vehicles and a guard structure. Now, officials believe it was all just a ploy to draw ICE detention officers out of the building. Instead, the correctional officers called 911 to report the vandalism. Now, when the Alvarado police officers arrived, suspected shooter Benjamin Song, who was positioned in the woods, shot an officer in the neck. The officer survived. Well, thank God for that. These people are absolutely nefarious. Now, an assailant across the street fired 20 to 30 rounds at unarmed correctional officers. The shooters ran away, but law enforcement officers stopped them. Now, investigators reportedly found they found AR-style rifles at the scene. They found more than one. Okay, found them at the scene, 2-way radios, and a total of 12 sets of body armor after searching the scene and the defendants' cars. Okay, one attacker allegedly had cell phones inside a type of bag that blocks cell phone signals. The complaint called the attack a conspiracy. Y'all hear this? This is absolutely egregious. This is all crazy, and all of this stuff is happening while Trump's in office, and I don't find it coincidental. Okay, Trump is just bad news all around, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, let's continue. So, next point of business is this. Let's go to Trump's trash talk that he did at the UN. Like, is Trump crazy or what? What do y'all think? Because I absolutely. Okay, this man was up there. He was blaming the immigrants for climate change. I mean, just saying the most idiotic things ever. Okay, which is no surprise, clearly, but nonetheless. And now he's also trying to take credit because, I'm going to show you a clip where Stephen Colbert had Kamala on there on the show, and he was just talking about how Kamala predicted all of this stuff, or she warned us and told us all this stuff that Trump was going to do. And he's done every bit of what she said. Gavin Newsom also was saying some things that Trump's going to do. So people have been saying that both of them were right about everything. And if you remember, they had a hat or something that Newsom, it looked like one of those Trump hats, and it said Newsom was right about everything. Now Trump is in fact saying that he was right about everything and that he's always right. And now out here trying to give other countries' leaders advice. Trump is the last person, and I literally mean the last person on earth, not just in the US, but on earth, That should be giving anyone advice about any darn thing, and that's just the fact. Okay. Now, with that being said, I'm going to put an overlay on here because I believe that they're going to be showing some perhaps of Jimmy Kimmel's videos or something like that, and I don't need any copyright issues because the news can show it. I can't.
Countdown to Kimmel's response tonight. I'm going to be watching. You may be as well if you can stay up that late. I promise you, this clip of Donald Trump addressing the United Nations during his first term tells us a lot about the moment we find ourselves in.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
Did you all see that? That idiot had to laugh at himself. Trump's clearly an idiot, but let's continue.
Okay. So that was Donald Trump being laughed at while standing on the world stage less than 2 years into his first term. It's definitely not the reaction that any world leader is hoping for when addressing the United Nations. It's actually a pretty big speech that U.S. leaders give. But it was especially concerning for Donald Trump, a man so thin-skinned and so obsessed completely with his self-image that he rarely lets any slight go unanswered, even when it's against his interest. And so today, imagine what was going through his head when he was entering the United Nations and this happened. Okay, so Trump passed through the security barricades. He then walked up to the escalator and stepped onto it with the First Lady, at which point, and you'll see in a second, okay, there it is, the escalator abruptly stopped, leaving Trump flummoxed for a few seconds. You can see the First Lady just walking up the stairs as one normal person does. He ultimately decided to just walk up the immobile staircase himself. Now, basically, everyone who has ever used an escalator, ever, has had some version of this exact same experience. Sometimes escalators malfunction, and you are left to just treat them like a regular staircase. Not a big deal. It happens. But for Donald Trump, the brief inconvenience of having to walk up a non-working escalator while on camera was enough to provoke outrage on the world stage.
Trump thinks it's all a conspiracy, that they cut the escalator off on purpose because it stopped right when he got to it. He is so funny.
I mean, there are a lot of topics Trump could have had on his mind. A lot today. A lot he could have talked about. Syria, Russia, Ukraine, the Middle East, Iran, name more than those. And yet here was Donald Trump moments later addressing the United Nations General Assembly.
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle, and then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Frankly, looking at the building and getting stuck on the escalator, they still haven't finished the job.
Okay, so that's real. That was the president of the United States lashing out at an assembled gathering of world leaders because the escalator apparently didn't show him enough respect. It was, to say the least, a ridiculous thing to bring up over and over again. We showed you a couple of examples of that in a speech to the United Nations. But the escalator crisis, believe it or not, it did not end there. Just a few hours after that speech, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt posted on X, quote, "If someone at the UN intentionally stopped the escalator as the president and First Lady were stepping on, they need to be fired and investigated immediately." I tried to do my best voice there. Yes, that is the White House press secretary. I know what that job is. That's not a normal thing to post. Calling for an investigation into the world's largest intergovernmental organization because an escalator stopped working. Now, for what it's worth, I promise you the story keeps getting better. Tonight, the Associated Press reports that the UN understands that someone from the president's party who ran ahead of him inadvertently triggered the stop mechanism on the escalator. I just love that detail. Okay.
Most people are too lazy to do this, but it saves homeowners a fortune. I worked in construction for 20 years now.
Case closed, I guess. The case should be closed. We should all move on. Here's the thing, though. That brief saga of Trump and the UN escalator is sort of a perfect encapsulation of what I like to call the Donald Trump rage cycle. And so I want to talk about it. I mean, first Trump decides he feels slighted by someone or something like an escalator. It can be something as small as a minor technical malfunction, clearly. Then he lashes out. He responds by doing or something ridiculous, like what he did today in his UN speech. And in the process, he calls even more attention to whatever has bruised his fragile ego. I mean, would we really still be talking about a broken escalator if Trump had just walked up the stairs and moved on with his day? Probably not. And then finally, Trump and his administration threatened to use the full force of the federal government to get payback, either through bogus investigations or troop mobilizations or threats from the FCC, all to avenge the dear leader. We've seen this cycle over and over again. This is what it is like to live in a country run by an insecure authoritarian bully. This is what it's like. And we are all too familiar with it by now. We are watching it happen again with the investigation into New York Attorney General Letitia James. I mean, first, Letitia James secures a civil fraud judgment against Trump for rampant, legit fraud in his businesses. Trump again lashes out publicly in ridiculous ways, yelling at his attorney general on social media for the entire world to see, and demanding that his perceived enemies be prosecuted. All of which culminates in the Trump administration forcing a career prosecutor out of office, one whom they themselves appointed, just so that Trump can install an unqualified insurance lawyer to do his bidding and bring charges against his enemies. That happened just last week. And yes, we saw a similar dynamic play out with the suspension of late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, first, Trump gets offended by the kind of late-night comedy ribbing every American president has faced for the past half a century, and he has given them more fodder than any president in the last half a century. Then Trump lashes out, letting the whole world know how ridiculously fragile he really is. And finally, Trump's handpicked FCC lackey goes out and starts making veiled threats to broadcasters, who then get scared enough to pull Kimmel off the air. It's the same story over and over again in just different industries and fields. And every time it starts out feeling ridiculous and ends up feeling a bit terrifying. But it does not have to end that way, because as I said, tonight, late night host Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air after a 6-day standoff with ABC Disney over his abrupt hiatus. And a big part of the reason Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air is because people across the country refuse to let themselves be cowed into submission by Donald Trump's threats. People showed up and protested outside of Disney headquarters, urging them to stand up to this administration. Calls poured out for people to cancel their subscriptions to Disney-owned streaming services and stop going to Disney-owned theme parks. Some Disney stars got in on the action, supporting the nascent boycott movement. Even some Trump allies started criticizing his actions. Just listen to podcaster and comedian Joe Rogan react to this story.
I definitely don't think that the government should be involved ever in dictating what a comedian can or cannot say in a monologue. That's right. Crazy.
It's crazy.
Now, if the problem is the companies, if they're being pressured by the government, so if that's real, and if people on the right are like, yeah, go get them. Oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy for supporting this.
Now, in addition to all of that, Kimmel's fellow late-night comedians stuck their own necks out to not just defend Jimmy Kimmel, but also explain to their corporate parent companies exactly what is at stake. Like this moment from comedian John Oliver.
If we've learned nothing else from this administration's second term so far, and I don't think we have, is that giving the bully your lunch money doesn't make him go away. It just makes him come back hungrier each time. They are never going to stop. They've literally said that openly.
That is a pretty solid encapsulation of what every company, university, law firm, media organization should be thinking about right now. When you give the bully your lunch money, he comes back. So after nearly a week of that kind of pushback, the executives at Disney finally came to their senses about Donald Trump. They realized that despite his office and despite his threats, Trump is not as big and powerful as he thinks he is, at least not compared to the throngs of people out there pushing back. Now, this story is not over. None of these stories are really completely over at all. Media conglomerates Sinclair and Nexstar are still refusing to air Kimmel's show on the ABC stations they own, setting up the next battle over free expression in this country. But Trump's threats do not feel as intimidating as they did last week because people stood up and they fought back. When Trump tried to take things from ridiculous to terrifying, when he tried to thump his chest and make himself seem big, people stood up and treated him like the small, weak, and petty bully that he is.
Okay, so Trump's just making a fool out of himself. Now, hold on. I'm going to go to this clip where he's actually talking. And also, I want you all to see this guy who went to HBCUs trying to follow in the footsteps of Charlie Kirk. And they ran him up out of there. Now, I don't know if you all know this, but Charlie Kirk used to go to HBCUs too. You see, like I told you all, he was a gatekeeper. Okay. And his job was to go and recruit as many Black folk as he can, young Black educated people, to get them to switch over to become Republicans. All right. And to turn them into raccoons, period. That's my opinion. Now, with that all being said, let's go to this clip of Trump sitting here talking crazy, as per usual.
Climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign, they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the president of the United States, but I worry about Europe.
Trump is so ridiculous. Listen, now I want you all to pay attention because Governor Newsom was clearly trolling him. Okay, because remember, I told you they had one of those hats that said Newsom was right about everything. That was Trump who had those hats, but Newsom was clearly trolling him and repeating Trump's exact words because Trump's just trying to take credit as if he knows anything. He knows nothing. Okay, now with that all being said, before I go to Governor Newsom, this is the video of this guy at an HBCU, and they're not here for any of it. Okay, they're not here for any of it.
All we did was set up a table. Hey, tell him where you going now? Because it ain't TSU no more, boy. You gonna fight through that shit, please? Can't even hear you.
Very safe, very black, and very tired of this.
They did not walk this way. They walked that way. Hey, what's up, man? Like, oh, press the hell. You feel me? Like, it's a crazy day out here. It's TSU. Hold on.
Okay, so it looks like they clearly were not there for it. Okay, clearly they didn't want to hear any of it. Now he's trying to pick up where Charlie Kirk left off. Not going to happen. Not at the HBCU. There's a reason Charlie Kirk stopped going to the HBCUs. For one, the students there were too smart for him. They knew that he was telling lies. They checked him on his fake facts. They called him out on his BS. And then he stopped coming and started going to other colleges, okay, trying to recruit people who look like me, as well as the white youths and everyone else. But I'm just saying, the only reason Charlie Kirk was interested in talking to any of those black students was to try to turn them into Candace Owens. Okay, that's what that was all about. Now, with that all being said, let's go to this next report of Trump about the UN. Then we'll get into Gavin Newsom.
To the United Nations and some allies during the speech at the UN. And as NBC's Garrett Hake reports, the president is also signaling a major shift involving the war in Ukraine, now calling on Ukraine to fight and win.
As President Trump arrived at the UN, the malfunctions piling up, the escalator stopping the moment he and the First Lady stepped on, and the teleprompter failing just as he started to speak.
These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
All as he delivered a scathing message, arguing the UN has become irrelevant.
What is the purpose of the United Nations?
Saying they've failed to stop global conflicts.
All they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war. The only thing that solves war and wars is action.
And sending this warning to leaders in Western Europe.
Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe,
urging them to adopt his crackdown on illegal immigration.
It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you, I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell.
But despite his criticism of the UN, the president's own efforts to end wars in Ukraine and in Gaza have largely stalled. But in a sudden shift, after this meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky,
thanks to our soldiers, we have this possibility, this opportunity.
Tonight, President Trump urging Ukraine to expand the battlefield, after earlier warning they may have to concede territory for peace. Writing, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form.
The other side can fight too, and they've proven that. Maybe it could be that Russia's a paper tiger. Let them get their land back. Yep. So we'll see how it all works out.
Also calling for a strong response after recent Russian incursions.
Mr. President, do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
This praise tonight from President Zelensky.
Big shift. Big shift. This post of Trump, it's a big shift.
And after key allies, including France and Canada, announced their recognition of a Palestinian state,
Canada recognizes the state of Palestine.
President Trump condemning that move.
The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. Instead of giving in to Hamas's ransom demands, those who want peace should be united with one message: release the hostages now.
That was NBC's Garrett Hake.
Okay, now with that all being said, my beloveds, okay, so now I see some of you going in, specifically Al B. Chill 2, going in on Governor Gavin Newsom. Listen, we already know that Governor Gavin Newsom shot down reparations and then used the California Commission, Reparations Commission Board, use them to do the dirty work. Now, that's just my opinion because I reported on that at the time. And I said, I think that he's the one that really was against the reparations, but he wanted them to take the fall for it because he wants the black vote in case he runs for president. That's just my opinion. At the end of the day, honey, we can't trust any of these politicians. We'd be fools to do so. Okay, that's just the bottom line. I don't trust any of them. But what I do enjoy seeing, okay, DJ Big Six said Newsom is a slick-haired snake. Okay. Now, that all being said, I don't trust any of them. But what I do like is to see them going in on one another. Okay. That's what I do like to see. So now I'm going to go to where Governor Gavin Newsom. All right, DJ Big Six said exactly, Queen. Okay, I love to see the snakes fighting one another. So I'm going to go to where he was on Stephen Colbert's show. This is on his Instagram. Okay, now let me get my overlays ready, honey, because I don't need any drama. Here we go. Hold on, I'm not sure if that one will be good enough. Let me just put this one on here. Okay.
NIH and the CDC is harping to me. My dad was an immunologist who was at NIH under Kennedy.
Yeah.
And I love seeing this, you know, personally, but tell the people why it's important that there are governmental institutions that actually are going to certify and say these are the proper treatments of these drugs. What does that mean in terms of people's insurance?
Well, and we just required that insurers provide insurance and cover the cost of all of these vaccines as well. And so we're not, again, it's
because normally they would use the CDC.
Yeah, they're going to use the CDC guidelines that are automatically default. And as a consequence, if they're not making those recommendations, they're not going to cover the costs of those treatments or those vaccines. And as a consequence of that, millions and millions of people potentially can lose that coverage. So in California, we're requiring our health plans, we're requiring those insurance companies to provide access, and we're making sure that our own independent analysis provides a list of recommendations based on facts, based on science, not based on bull and fear.
What's happening at the NIH and the CDC is harping to me.
I fear.
When you talk, it's the ultimate fear is that you no longer lose your. When you're talking about like we've got to push back, and I know
Black people.
I fear that we will not have an election in 2028. I really mean that. And the core of my soul, unless we wake up to the code red, what's happening in this country, and we wake up soberly to how serious this moment is. I fear that we will not have an election.
when you're talking about like we've got to push back, and I know in this case you're specifically referring to Democrats, but you've made an outreach to move beyond Democrats. That it's not like Democrat versus Republican is what I hear from you sometimes. It's that like sanity versus insanity, or like reason versus fear. And you've gone to some lengths to do that. You've got your own podcast. You've talked to Steve Bannon. You spoke to the late Charlie Kirk.
He was my first guest on the podcast.
And I'm just curious, what did you get from those conversations? Because sometimes some people come on podcasts or even television shows and aren't honest representatives of their ideas. Well,
I got a lot of.
I'm curious what you got from those conversations.
I got a lot of grief. I got a lot of criticism for quote unquote platforming people we disagree with. But look, it's not complicated. Divorce is not an option. I mean, at the end of the day, we got to figure out a way to live together and advance together across our differences. And there is something, look, success leaves clues. They were successful in the last election. People need to understand what motivates them, how they keep winning in the context of how they keep organizing and building a coalition, particularly young men, Charlie Kirk, and what he was able to do. So he was kind enough to fly out. We spent an hour and a half together. Interestingly, we were staying connected up until just a few weeks ago, until this tragic assassination. We had Steve Bannon on for the same reason. And no exaggeration, about 40 minutes into the Bannon conversation, I thought I was talking to, and this is not an indictment of Bernie Sanders, but it sounded more like Bernie Sanders in terms of the populist messaging. Mm-hmm. And I never expected that. We didn't get into January 6th, all the things we disagree on. So look, I think it's important to have those civil engagements. I think it's important to dialogue. It's important to learn from your opponents, and it's important to reconcile your weaknesses. As a Democratic Party, we have a lot of work to do to make up for our failures in the past. We got crushed in this last election. And now we're in a position where we are struggling to communicate. We're struggling to win back now the majority in the House of Representatives. And
it's the ultimate fear is that you no longer lose you no longer have your democracy to be able to make change peacefully.
He knows he's going to lose the midterm elections. He's underwater and he's weak in every category. Donald Trump is weakness masquerading as strength. He's weak in every key category. That's a fact. And I think it's an important fact. He knows that. And that's why he dialed not for votes, but he dialed for seats. He said he's, quote unquote, entitled to 5 seats. Called Greg Abbott, who was totally supine, said, yes, sir, and gave him the 5 seats in Texas to change the maps. He did the same thing in Indiana, Missouri. He's doing the same thing in Florida, likely Ohio, and we'll see what happens in Utah. And Democrats, we're going to hold hands, talk about the way the world should be, say it's just so unfair, maybe write an op-ed. Meanwhile, this guy's consolidating power. And so for us, we decided to push back and fight back. But it's not just that. That's the tip of the iceberg, rigging the midterm election because he knows otherwise he'll lose. When we kicked off the campaign, and this is important for people to understand, when we kicked it off at the Democracy Center in Los Angeles, he sent out ICE and Border Patrol to intimidate folks from walking in to our event. He ended up arresting this poor soul that was just trying to sell strawberries as collateral damage to intimidate us. That is a preview, Stephen, of things to come in voting booths and polling places across this country. He federalized 4,000 National Guard in my state. He still has hundreds of federalized National Guard. He sent the United States Marines, not overseas, but to an American city, 700 active duty Marines. He sent the military to American cities to police American citizens. And the ICE issue is alarming beyond words. It is the largest private domestic army of its type, police force anywhere in the world. He'll have 30,000 people that increasingly appear to be swearing an oath of office to him, not the Constitution of the United States. Again, wake up to what's going on in this country. I want to say a few words about the events of the last few days. This past weekend, federal agents conducted large-scale workplace raids in and around Los Angeles. Those raids continue as I speak. California is no stranger to immigration enforcement, but instead of focusing on undocumented immigrants with serious criminal records and people with final deportation orders, a strategy both parties have long supported, this administration is pushing mass deportations, indiscriminately targeting hardworking immigrant families, regardless of their roots or risk. What's happening right now is very different than anything we've seen before. On Saturday morning, when federal agents jumped out of an unmarked van near a Home Depot parking lot, they began grabbing people, a deliberate targeting of a heavily Latino suburb. A similar scene played out when a clothing company was raided downtown. In other actions, a U.S. citizen, 9 months pregnant, was arrested. A 4-year-old girl taken, families separated, friends quite literally disappearing. In response, everyday Angelenos came out to exercise their constitutional right to free speech and assembly, to protest their government's actions. In turn, the state of California and the city and county of Los Angeles sent our police officers to help keep the peace. And with some exceptions, they were successful. Like many states, California is no stranger to this sort of unrest. We manage it regularly and with our own law enforcement. But this, again, was different. What then ensued was the use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, federal agents detaining people and undermining their due process rights. Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets, illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He doubled down on his dangerous National Guard deployment by fanning the flames even harder. And the president, he did it on purpose. As the news spread throughout LA, anxiety for family and friends ramped up. Protests started again. By night, several dozen lawbreakers became violent and destructive. They vandalized property. They tried to assault police officers. Many of you have seen the video clips of cars burning on cable news. If you incite violence, I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account. That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated, full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Again, thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority.
All right, so y'all heard that. Trump is steady raising hell, just running the country, and then has the audacity, dare I say, to tell other leaders that their countries are going to hell when his is literally already there. Okay, make that make sense. And this whole thing with ICE, you know, it's getting out of hand. That's why you have people calling in bomb threats, ambushing the officers, and all of this stuff. And now you have that shooting. It's just getting real crazy. And at the end of the day, Trump is responsible for a lot of this. Now, he's not going to take any credit, mind you, but he definitely is responsible, in my opinion. Now, that's right, Claudette said the country is eroding. Now, with that being said, let's get to this report because Representative James Clyburn said that I'll never vote to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy. Okay, and they didn't like it one bit. So let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. You know, and I was kind of shocked to hear Clyburn say that because I actually thought that he was possibly a raccoon. But let's continue. Can't be that much of a raccoon. He didn't fall for that.
Do know, though, is that when Melissa Hortman, the Speaker of the Minnesota Legislature, was shot, there was a commemorative resolution in the Congress, and every Republican voted for it.
Right.
When Charlie Kirk was assassinated for his political beliefs, there were 58 Democrats who would not vote for a resolution to honor him. So
and I was one of them.
Why do you think it was?
I don't mind honoring anybody's life. I've got a problem with their legacy. And I know what the legacy of Kirk was. When I turn on my TV and I see someone telling me what an awful person Martin Luther King Jr. was, when I see somebody telling me, if I get on.
Hold on. Janetta said he is a raccoon live in South Carolina. Oh, I know, but he ain't that much of one, honey. He's a raccoon with sense enough to know not to honor Charlie Kirk. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. He isn't a Candace Owens, clearly.
An airplane, and there's a black pilot. I begin to wonder, is he qualified? What does that mean? Those are the words that came out of his mouth.
That's not what he said. And
that's exactly what he said. I got the exact quote.
It's not in context at all what he was talking about. It was a conversation about affirmative action. You know that, Congressman. This has been well litigated and well debated.
Everything about black people was about affirmative action. And so what's wrong with affirmative action?
No.
Look, you're telling me that when I came out of college and couldn't get a job, that was because I was not qualified?
That's not what I'm saying.
But what are you saying?
What I'm saying is Charlie Kirk was very clear.
In other news, Georgia residents are going to be happy to hear this. It just came out.
Companies openly say that they have to somehow fill a quota of people, whether it be a race or gender, not based on merit, but based on their race or gender. The obvious should be clear to everyone, which is that person then qualified?
So
that's an obvious question. Because of the bar that the corporation itself set up by saying publicly, we're going to do this type of DEI hiring, then you have to wonder, is it because of their race or their gender?
Can I just that's not what it is. That's not what it is. Hogan, why would you have to wonder?
Hold on. I'm going to go back to it in a second. You all be careful of what you put in the chats. If you hear me saying certain words and I'm not saying them correctly, that's for a reason. If you hear me saying certain words like raccoon and you know what it actually means, then when you put it in the chat, please put raccoon as well. Otherwise, I'll delete your comment. Okay, let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, why would you have to wonder that? The only reason you would wonder that is if you're inclined to believe that nobody can be qualified if they are black and brown going into those roles. And also, but here's one other thing that I think is just a factual dispute with what you're describing. You're suggesting that the standards are lower for people of color filling these roles when there is absolutely
The exact opposite.
no evidence.
The exact opposite.
No, but that's what you said.
No, it
said,
isn't.
Hold on, Hogan. You said that they are only getting these jobs because of their race or gender,
That's not what I
and
said.
not because they are qualified.
Not
So
what
are
I
they
said.
qualified or not?
That's not what I said.
Are they
What I
qualified
said-
or not?
What I said was
is a
the
pilot sitting in
the
a hold on,
stated-
Hogan, is a pilot sitting on an airplane, flying a plane, whether he's black or white or a woman or gay or lesbian, if they are sitting in that seat and they meet the FAA requirements for being in that seat, are they qualified?
If they are qualified, I sure hope so.
Are they?
question-
But you
the
don't
que-
believe that they're qualified.
This man is an idiot. If they're qualified, I hope so. Who in the hell's gonna hire a pilot that isn't qualified and risk people's lives and the airplane getting sued? Okay, the airplane company getting sued. Is he serious? Are y'all listening to the bullshit? Now he knows that's what he said. Now he's trying to walk back. Oh, I didn't say that, but you can't even admit that these people are absolutely qualified. Fool. How would they get the job? How would they get the job? Okay, here's the thing. For anybody that has a problem with affirmative action, DEI, at the end of the day, it's so that people get jobs, okay? That people that are frowned upon or people that are the minority or whatever you want to call it, that usually might be looked over for positions that they absolutely are qualified for. It's to ensure that these people get jobs. And it's not about them taking a job from a white person or anyone else, because the job doesn't belong to anyone until the person is hired for it. Okay? Now, can we continue? Because this man sounds so ridiculous. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. This is what I'm talking about right here. Because when these idiots say things like this, that, oh, they're not qualified because they're DEI. They just got hired because of how they look, because they're black or because they're Asian or whatever. That's so idiotic. Okay? That's racial profiling and that's stereotypical BS and foolery. And they know darn well they're not telling the truth. You don't think they had to take the same testing? You don't think they had to have the same education levels? You don't think that they took all of the same training and all of that stuff? Like, make it make sense. They're not going to hire somebody who isn't qualified just because they're black or a woman or whatever, just like she said. It's to ensure that people who are qualified, who are non-white, also have a chance at getting jobs that they deserve. But let's continue.
That's not what I said. What I said was, if the criteria was their race or gender, then how am I to know
that's
the
why I'm telling you,
qualification is
Hogan,
there?
that
we
is
had
a
a president of the
factual
United States.
error that
we
you
had
are
a
making.
president of the
Hold
United
on,
States,
Hogan,
and
I
Joe
don't want
Biden,
you to
who came out and said
Hogan, you're
he
changing.
wanted
Listen, I don't want you to change the subject
woman
because
of
you are
color
making
to be the vice president. So when I noticed that that's what he said, that's not my fault. Joe Biden said it.
Just because Joe Biden said he wanted a woman of color to be the vice president of the United States, is he trying to say that she wouldn't be qualified? Get him out of here, please.
You were in the White House when Donald Trump said he was going to put a woman on the Supreme Court, and then he picked Amy Coney Barrett. Is she not qualified?
She is extremely qualified.
Okay, so why is she qualified? But
because she's white.
Ketanji Brown Jackson is not.
He talked about the qualification as well. What I'm saying is, in that clear.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Charlie Kirk, why didn't Charlie Kirk bring her up when he's talking about who's qualified and who isn't? Why didn't he bring her up? Okay? Or any of the incompetent idiots in Trump's own cabinet. None of those people are qualified. They may as well be DEI. Okay, by their logic.
Directive from Joe Biden, in the clear directive from those companies, they are saying we are filling the quota.
Let me ask.
They're not even saying filling
I'm
the
going to
quota
ask you
with the
again
most
because I think you have
qualified.
another opportunity to really think this through.
I've thought it
Donald
through.
Trump said, "I am going to pick a woman to go on the Supreme Court." Oh, you know what? Let me ask. Let me give you another one.
So should he not have
George
done that?
George H.W. Bush said, "I am going to pick I'm going to pick a black man to fill a role on the Supreme Court." Are those people unqualified?
I want always the most qualified people to hold those jobs.
Are they qualified or not?
It depends on their
Was it a
qualification.
quota or not?
Here's the thing. Sometimes the person that was the DEI hire, and I want y'all to listen close and pay attention. Sometimes the person that was the actual DEI hire is the most qualified. Do they not understand that? You could absolutely be the most qualified for the job and be hired because you're DEI. And if it weren't for DEI, you could still be the most qualified person for the job and they not give it to you because they give it to someone who may be less qualified because they're white. It's called privilege. How do these people pretend to not understand this? I'm telling you that they know exactly what they're doing, playing stupid. This is what racist people love to do. They love to feign ignorance. Now, they are ignorant to a degree, but when it comes to things like this, they know exactly what's going on. Let us not forget that I showed you the video of the 16-year-old white teenager, okay, who knew all of this stuff and explained it so eloquently. You're going to tell me that he could understand this, but this grown man can't? Of course he understands it. He's just being a racist piece of
Always
what.
a quota when you base it on race or gender. If you base it on qualification, if the person is hired is black or a woman or whatever, it doesn't matter. That's
Let
the
me just
point.
ask you a direct question.
It's the ultimate
Is it okay
meritocracy.
for Donald Trump to have DEI quotas or not?
It's not okay for anyone to have DEI
So then
quotas.
why did he have a DEI quota, by your definition, for Amy Coney Barrett?
He didn't. He said that was one of the selections. People said he should fill it with a woman.
Okay. He said he was going to fill it with a woman, and he did.
He did not only interview women for the job.
Correct.
Okay.
So
I'm sure Joe Biden didn't only interview men for black women for the job.
Joe Biden had said as he went in his search process, his short list would be all women of color,
and they were.
Listen,
and they were
No,
qualified.
that's not true.
They were qualified.
We're taking issue
Brad,
with the
you're talking about
criteria.
the guy that brought it in
Brad,
the
I just think
campaign.
it's you guys are misleading. I'm not gonna say you're lying. I'm just gonna say you're misleading about what Donald Trump said. The day after, Justice Ginsburg died, he said he was going to pick a woman to replace her. He said that. Okay, I'm not paraphrasing. That is what he
by
said.
that standard,
So,
he should not have issued that as a criteria.
All right.
All right. One more thing. Justice Thomas.
This goes to prove how racist they are, period.
Who I'm sure you love. You love him, right?
Sure.
He was chosen to replace a black Supreme Court justice in part because he was a black man. Who is more qualified in terms of actual experience to be on the court, him or Ketanji Brown Jackson? Do you know?
I don't know if any of them.
Okay. Well, I've checked. She served as a federal judge for way longer. He actually didn't before she was put on the Supreme Court.
No, false. He was on the D.C. Court of Appeals, the second highest
Well,
court in
she
the land.
served, yes,
by the
yes.
Bar Association.
He- yes.
You cannot besmirch
He was on there for a very brief period of time.
The second
She
highest
was
court
served
in the
as a
land.
judge.
We have
for-
never considered any nominee
Hold
for
on.
Supreme Court who was on the D.C. Court of
am
Appeals to
not-
be
hold on.
unqualified for the Supreme Court.
I am not
never.
suggesting.
Never, ever has that been
I
said.
am not
You're
suggesting.
saying Clarence Thomas was not qualified?
I'm not. Actually, no, not. I am not.
You just
I am
said
not
he was
suggesting
not
that he's
qualified.
unqualified.
You see how he's lying? You see how he's sitting there lying to her face? She didn't say that Clarence Thomas wasn't qualified. She said that Ketanji is more qualified. If someone is more qualified, that doesn't mean that you're not qualified. It just means that they have more education or experience or both than you. No, you do. You hear how this devil is sitting there trying to twist her words and say that she said something she never even said.
At all.
You did.
I am saying that he is qualified just the way that Ketanji Brown Jackson is qualified, just the way that Amy Coney Barrett
No, you
is
said
qualified.
he was less qualified
No.
than Ketanji Brown Jackson.
I'm asking
So
you.
that's what you
I'm
said.
saying about comparing their resumes. If you want to compare
You
their
said
resumes,
he was less
one of the
qualified
things
than
that
her.
Charlie Kirk said was that Ketanji Brown Jackson, if she says that she was affirmative action pick, then what she is saying is that she didn't have the brain processing power to get that job without replacing a white man.
Look,
but I'm asking you, if you objectively look at her resume, is that a factual statement?
Oh, she's qualified for the Supreme
Okay,
Court.
so then
of
let's leave it
course.
at that, because I just
She's
think
not
that.
very good at her job, but she's qualified.
Okay, let's leave it at that, because we want to make a lot of broad statements
But
about
according
who's
to Kirk,
qualified
she
and
was a
who's not.
diversity hire.
Say that again?
That's what they said.
Yeah.
That she, Ketanji, was a diversity hire.
I want to go back. This all started
I got
when
it.
we were talking about
I got 12
whether
of
or
his
not
quotes right here.
whether or not Democrats should have voted to honor Charlie Kirk's life. And Congressman, I respect you. You are a living legend. I deeply respect your motives. However, I think that this is a question of whether we honor people who gave their life to public service. I didn't agree with Charlie Kirk on everything.
Okay.
But he gave his life to public service.
I'll let you have the last word on this. Go ahead.
So just because you feel like he gave his life to public service, he needs to be honored. Well, then you honor him. James Clyburn does not have to if he doesn't choose to. Who the hell do these idiots think they are that they think they get to tell the rest of the people that don't want to honor him why they should? Everybody didn't agree with him, and that's just the facts. And you need to stop trying to force this man down everybody's damn throat. Let's continue.
I just say this. His life is one thing, his legacy is another. Now, I honor everybody's life. But when you tell me that was a diversity hire, when you tell me you're going to give thought to whether or not a black pilot is qualified, something else is going on in your head. And that's a legacy that I will never vote to honor. So if they're taking legacy off, which we asked them to do, and just honor his life, you got my vote. But his legacy, I know what my father's inherited from the legacy of the South.
I'm on me the never. I'm on me the never. I'm on me the never.
He said he knows what his father inherited from the legacy of the South. Okay? Please sit down somewhere, honey. These people are a hot mess. Now, if you thought that was something, let's go to Little Miss Crockett talking about Trump and Tom Homan. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Thank you in advance.
For some of us, because as we know, January 6th is highly disputed about what happened on that day. But, you know, especially if he's not going to come clean about what he did. And with all the conspiracies that this White House and this administration is constantly putting out, the best thing that we can do is have some proof for those that actually want to know the truth. So I hope that we can get that video footage. But last I checked, we're still having problems getting the rest of these Epstein files out of the Department of Justice. So I'm not really sure. It seems like the Attorney General is too busy trying to figure out if the president is tweeting her about something or truthing her or whatever you want to call it, or texting. I'm not really sure, because he's real concerned about Tish James and trying to figure out why we can't prosecute Tish James. Yet sitting in his administration, it seems clear that he has plenty of criminals amongst him, including himself, that maybe should be prosecuted, but we're not going to talk about that.
You know, it is, I do think that this is not just about Tom Homan, but he is another person in a long line of people in this administration. And it's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I understand why you all are asking for the details, especially because the White House, from the press briefing room, Caroline Leavitt the other day said, oh, he didn't take the money. And then when Laura Ingraham asked him, he said, well, I didn't do anything criminal or illegal. But did you take the money? Because my MSNBC colleague said that there's internal documents that say you did, and it's on camera. That being said, the Department of Justice has acknowledged the letter that the House Judiciary letter, the FBI has not yet acknowledged it. This is from the letter. During the Reagan administration, E. Robert Wallach was convicted for taking payments while promising to influence contracts once he received a Justice Department appointment, despite not having landed a job at the time he pocketed the bribes. That is exactly what Mr. Homan did here. That's what he did. Why didn't the Biden Department of Justice charge him?
I have no idea. Obviously, I don't serve in the DOJ. I'm in the legislature.
Yeah, that's right. I meant to tell you all that days ago. So Tom Homan, the border czar, got caught and cold busted accepting a $50,000 bribe, according to sources. Let's talk about it real quick, and then we'll get back to them. Tom Homan was investigated for accepting $50,000 from undercover FBI agents. Trump DOJ shut it down. The FBI and justice officials closed the investigation, which a Justice Department appointee had called a deep state probe in early 2025. Now I want y'all to pay attention. So they shut it down, but this man was taking money, okay? Please pay attention. In an undercover operation last year, the FBI recorded Tom Homan, now the White House border czar, accepting a $50,000 cash payment after indicating he could help the agents. Okay, clearly a bribe, all right? Okay, they were posing as business executives. Now, when government contracts in a second Trump administration, he was going to help them win government contracts in a second Trump administration, according to multiple people familiar with the probe, as well as internal documents reviewed by MSNBC. Now, the FBI and the Justice Department plan to wait to see whether Homan would deliver on his alleged promise once he became the nation's top immigration official. But the case indefinitely stalled soon after Donald Trump became president again in January, according to 6 sources familiar with the matter. Now, in recent weeks, Trump's appointees officially closed that investigation after FBI Director Kash Patel, who's a DEI hire, okay, requested a status update on the case. Now, they say it's unclear what reasons FBI and Justice Department officials gave for shutting down the investigation, but a Trump Justice Department appointee called the case a deep state probe in early 2025, and no further investigative steps were taken. Now, the federal investigation was launched in Western Texas in the summer of 2024 after a subject in a separate investigation claimed Homan was soliciting payments in exchange for reward or for awarding contracts should Trump win the presidential election, according to an internal Justice Department summary of the probe reviewed by MSNBC and people familiar with the case. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District of Texas, working with the FBI, asked the Justice Department's Public Integrity Section to join its ongoing probe into the border czar and former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Tom Homan, and others based on evidence of payment from FBI undercover agents in exchange for facilitating future contracts related to border enforcement. Oh, he's guilty. Now, Homan, who served as acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement early in Trump's first term, openly claimed during the 2024 campaign that he would play a prominent role in carrying out Trump's promised mass deportations. As for comment about MSNBC's exclusive reporting, the White House, the Justice Department, and the FBI dismissed the investigation as politically motivated baselessness. Okay, that's what they said. It was baseless. And in a statement provided to MSNBC, FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said this matter originated under the previous administration and was subjected to a full review by FBI agents and Justice Department prosecutors. They found no credible evidence of any criminal wrongdoing. The department's resources must remain focused on real threats to the American people, not baseless investigations, they say. And as a result, the investigation has been closed. Now, White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson slammed the probe as a blatantly political investigation, which found no evidence of illegal activity. Is yet another example of how the Biden administration or the Biden Department of Justice was using its resources to target Trump's allies rather than investigate real criminals and millions of illegal aliens who flooded our country. These people are nothing but hypocrites. Are you all hearing this ignorance that they're talking about? These people are nothing but hypocrites, accusing people of doing the same thing that they've been doing the whole past 9 months. So anyway, goes on to say, Tom Homan has not been involved in any contract award decisions. He is a career law enforcement officer and lifelong public servant who is doing a phenomenal job on behalf of President Trump and the country. This is what she added on behalf of Homan, senior White House employee. Homan did not reply to requests for comments. Now, undercover FBI agents posing as contractors communicated and met several times last summer with a business colleague who introduced them to Homan, and then with Homan himself, who indicated he would facilitate securing the contracts for them in exchange for money once he was in office. This is all according to documents, okay, and people familiar with the case. So on September the 20th of 2024, with hidden cameras rolling, recording the scene at a meeting spot in Texas, Homan accepted $50,000 in bills. Okay, FBI agents and Justice Department prosecutors took no further investigative steps in the final months of 2024. Okay, and expected to keep monitoring Homan to determine if he landed an official role and would make good on steering contracts in a future Trump administration. Now, when special agents in Texas began probing the subject's claim that Homan was soliciting for bribes, the White House border czar, age 63, was president and owner of a private consulting business that said it could help companies in the border security industry win government contracts. Homan often accompanied Trump on the campaign trail in 2023 and 2024, and for months before the presidential election publicly touted that he expected to oversee implementation of Trump's immigration policies. So he was out there bragging, running his mouth, and making backdoor deals. He did it, and Trump's just covering it up, okay? They're all making money hand over fist, doing illegal activity. Trump is a criminal, and he has a band of criminals that are working at his behest, and they're all just doing all kinds of schemes, cons, and frauds, in my opinion, okay? Probably money laundering and everything else that you can think of under the sun, and likely operating like John Gotti himself, because I told you all, and you know you heard it here first, that Trump is running this country like the mafia. Let me continue. Now, with that all being said, several FBI and justice officials believe that they had a strong criminal case against Homan for conspiracy to commit bribery based on recording him. They have him on video, recording him accepting the cash and his apparent promise to assist with contracts, according to 4 people, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4, familiar with the probe. Homan could have been charged with a crime then, legal experts say, but his case was unusual. He was not a public official at the time, and Trump was not the president at the time that he accepted the money, okay, in the FBI's undercover sting. So his actions didn't clearly fit under a standard bribery charge. Well, if you ask me, what they should have done was charged his behind anyway and arrested him, and therefore he would never have been in the position that he's in, because he'd have been in jail, hopefully. Okay, so that makes no sense. Now, top officials privately debated the possible charges given Homan's status at the time. People familiar with the case gave this information, saying several concluded it would be better for the investigation to continue to monitor his actions once he was back in public office. They should have known that was not going to be smart, because Trump, if he becomes president, which he now is, this is exactly what he would do. They should have known this. According to a document reviewed by MSNBC, justice officials were eyeing 4 potential criminal charges in the case: conspiracy, bribery, and 2 kinds of fraud. Now, MSNBC asked legal experts about a hypothetical situation similar to the Homan probe. They said a person who promises to influence federal contracts when they become a public official can't be charged under the federal bribery statutes until they are named or appointed to such a post. Now, if the person did get the administration job and then reaffirmed his promise or communicated in some way about his plan to deliver on his agreement, investigators could make a strong bribery case. Okay, well, he took the money, so we already know what he was up to. Now, let's continue.
Legislative branch, but I
Is that
will
a question
tell
you
you,
have? Are you wondering?
No, I mean, hopefully we can get an answer to that as well. I think, just this week or last week, I talked about, if there was one disappointment I had, is the fact that, there wasn't an aggressive prosecution on the now president of the United States, because maybe he could have been sitting somewhere not bothering the rest of us if we had just kind of done our part and made sure there was prosecutions that went forward a little quicker. But as it relates to this particular thing, I think it is important for the American people to understand that when it comes to things such as conspiracy, which is laid out in this letter, it's not whether or not the underlying offense actually takes place. For instance, when you were talking about solicitation, if you're talking about solicitation and it has to do with, say, prostitution, it's not a matter of whether or not the prostitution took place. The solicitation is complete once you actually engage in the agreement. That is enough for solicitation. So I think, number one, we've already got a bit of an admission.
And that's my point. Are you all listening? That's my point. Okay, he's already said that he's going to do it, made the agreement, and took the money. If he took the money, how is he not able to be prosecuted already? Now, they may not have been able to prosecute him for the position because, of course, he wasn't an official, but nonetheless, he still could have been charged, okay? And then he wouldn't have been able to get that position. Like, these people sound crazy.
From this administration, when the press secretary said he was entrapped. Well, entrapment is a defense. And so you only get to use entrapment if you've actually committed the underlying offense. It's like self-defense, right? Like self-defense, you have to admit to committing the offense, and then you can raise the defense. So
You better lawyer it out for the people at home. That's why the president always got something to say about you, because you got the underlying details.
But that's the same thing with this entrapment thing that they're now saying. But when it comes down to conspiracy, the conspiracy is complete at the agreement. And so whether or not like you could actually carry it out doesn't matter.
And that's facts. You see, they're just full of BS. DJ Big Six said time wasting babbling. No, it's not time wasted babbling. She needs to be telling this, okay? Because they're sitting up here lying, acting like they didn't have a reason or they weren't able to charge him. That's all a load of BS. He already committed conspiracy. When you plot and plan to do something illegal, that's conspiracy. Okay, you don't have to carry it out. That's like if someone plots to, a murder. Okay, that's like we've seen this 1,000 times. That's like if someone hires somebody to commit a murder and they pay them for it. Now they give them the money. Once they exchange the money and the person agrees to do it, are they supposed to wait for them to actually commit the murder to charge them? Or should they charge them and arrest them to prevent the murder from ever happening? That's how it works. They're full of bull. Just like they were full of bull when they charged Trump after he committed fraud. Okay, inflating the cost of his properties to get more money for loans and all of that. They charged him with civil fraud. Why not criminal fraud? Because they don't want to send him to prison. Okay, that's what that is. Yes, she makes excellent points, Nene. Thank you. And like someone said, Mel said, it seems like Jasmine Crockett is in this fight all by herself. Where are the rest of the Democrats? Exactly my question. Okay, exactly my question. At the end of the day, I don't agree with everything she says and does, but I don't agree with everything that anybody says and does 9 times out of 10, specifically politicians. But at least she's willing to confront the BS and call out the BS that Trump's up here doing and his administration. Where's the rest of them? How come nobody's impeaching this clown? Okay, why hasn't he already been sent to prison for all of the crimes he's committed? All right. Now they want to sit here and have us try to make us think that they couldn't have charged Tom Homan. Of course they could have. Miss me with the BS. Of course they could have, had they wanted to.
What matters is that you made the agreement. And now, just like we saw in Nixon, when Nixon decided, you know what, it's getting a little too hot in here, in a bipartisan way, they're about to boot me, I'm going to just go ahead and bow out.
Hey, this is Senator John Ossoff in Georgia. And before you skip this ad, I've got
part of the biggest issue with Nixon was the cover-up of it. That became the bigger issue. And now that's what we see with this administration. Not only are they going out and they are doing illegal things, they are then engaging in a cover-up over these things instead of just being transparent.
And the interesting thing about that is when you look at how this all started in Western Texas, right? When apparently an informant started saying, hey, this guy, Homan, is going around and he's soliciting bribes or wants something in order to help people once he gets inside, Trump has a second term. That then triggers the FBI investigation because the word on the street is Homan is in business, basically. Right.
I am so happy you are breaking this down. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so once Mr. Homan is identified as being in business on the street. So in other words, this ain't coming from inside the Biden administration. Right. This isn't coming from inside some, Democratic caucus room.
Correct.
This is coming from the streets of Texas about what's going on.
Not the Democratic streets.
And not the Democratic streets. That then triggers the FBI to go,
Correct.
What's going on?
Correct.
And they set up a sting.
So you're breaking down why, for sure, it's not entrapment.
That's
okay.
Right.
Because what entrapment is me coercing you to do something.
Yeah, entrapment is basically when the police set you up, they may lie to you or whatever to get you to commit a crime that you normally may not have committed had they not set you up or lied to you about it, okay? It's like when they do those prostitution stings, all right? Sometimes that involves entrapment. What he did, that wasn't entrapment. He voluntarily did that and took that money too. So they could miss me with it. No, that was not entrapment,
thing
period.
that you had no idea you wasn't trying to do or nothing. Okay. But when we're talking about getting the type of authority that you're going to need to be able to give out $50,000 in cash, that is not going to be on just, I'm trying to trap somebody.
Right.
That has to literally clear the traps. Okay. And typically it's a matter of, this happens a lot of times with dope boys. Like it happens all the time. This is how they work their cases. It's typically they bring somebody in who's lower level, who's trying not to go to prison, who says, I will help you to get to the people that are really at the top. And so they get this information from those people, and then they set up their investigations. They follow up. They try to figure out if there's any veracity. They obviously were able to get a lot of corroboration to the extent that someone signed off on an agent being able to sign out $50,000 in cash.
And that's a critical piece. That's a critical piece, Alicia, when you look at when the FBI finally sees that the elements of a potential crime are in place. I mean, it's not just, Simone coming to the FBI and saying, hey, Michael's doing something.
Yes.
There's got to be some corroboration
Yes.
along the way. And that's the part
Yes.
that's the trap.
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
corroborating and don't even know it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So if somebody walks up to Michael and says, hey, I got $50,000. I know you a Republican, so Trump probably about to be elected. How about I give you this $50,000 and then you hook me up with some stuff? That's entrapment. Because
Right.
Michael, I'm just minding my business and Trump ain't even my guy.
That's
right?
right.
That's the thing. But when it's a matter of different people and when you have multiple people that are saying, hey, this guy is out here fishing. And the bad part is that he actually could have gone forward, which would have been a whole other issue.
That's right.
Because what we see that they've done, just like we've complained for a very long time about mass incarceration, that it's about profiting in this country, right? And so now they've thrown these people into these makeshift bootleg prisons. I've had an opportunity to go down to one of the detention facilities. We know that it's a whole cluster when we look at Alligator Alcatraz. The idea that we even have one is the most inhumane violation of the 8th Amendment if I ever saw one before. But nevertheless, they have set these things up. There's all these contracts that are going out. When I went to El Paso, I asked them approximately how many people are working here. They told me hundreds of people. It was, I think, 700 people a day were working at this facility. So I asked how many are federal government employees. It was 25. Everybody else was on a contract. Everybody got a contract from somewhere. And I can promise you 10 out of 10 of them contracts are Trump's homies, right? And people that Homan was trying to say, yo, I'm going to hook you up. We're going to have contracts because we about to go round up all these people of color and we going to put them somewhere and y'all going to make money off of it.
They always say, follow the money.
Always follow the money.
Exactly. Okay, exactly. Now, with that all being said, we're almost done. Okay, I have a couple of more things to show you all. First off, let's go to Kamala when Stephen Colbert is telling her how she warned us about all this stuff about Trump and everything that she said that Trump was going to do. Guess what? He's done it. Okay, he has absolutely done it. Now, with that all being said, let me put an overlay on here because I don't need any drama.
Someone who does not participate in piling on. And I was not going to pile on. And I just wasn't going to do that. And there was a lot of piling on at that time, and I wasn't going to participate in that.
Well, one person you did pile on.
Strange dreams, confusing feelings, still stalking your ex's dog online. There's therapy for that.
I will always treasure your debate with Trump. That was one of the greatest. That was one of the greatest rhetorical performances I've ever seen. You smoked him like a ham. I just want to remind everybody, you warned everyone about the future under our present president. You said he would prosecute his political enemies. He would cut Medicaid, Medicare. He would ignore court orders. He would alienate our allies. He would give massive tax cuts to the rich. And I know you're not here to say, I told you so. But would you like to?
But let me just say this. You are correct that I did predict a lot of it. But Stephen, what I did not predict was the capitulation. I didn't predict that.
People would roll over for this president.
I didn't see that. I didn't see that coming. And perhaps it's naive of me, someone who has seen a lot that most people haven't seen, but I believed that on some level, you know, there should be many who consider themselves to be guardians of our system and our democracy who just capitulated. And I didn't see that coming.
Do you think, I mean, you must have some still connection to what's going on in Washington. Do you think that these people think that they can just ride out the storm and everything will be fine on the other side?
I think there are some who do. And I think that it is completely naive. I think there are a lot of people who think they're riding out the storm as an excuse to be feckless. And you know, this is a time for people to, you know, I mean, look, we designed our democracy with 3 independent, co-equal branches of government. I mean, when you see that the president of the United States is trying to get rid of the Department of Education, and Congress has the role and responsibility to stand in the way of that, and they're just sitting on their hands and then they go on recess because they don't want to deal with transparency?
And the Supreme Court says that he can ignore a law that established it.
Yeah, but the Supreme Court, we knew what they were doing. Remember, I talked about it in 107 Days. I don't put that in the book, by the way.
This is an exclusive.
This is an exclusive for the Stephen Colbert Show. But that the Supreme Court basically gave whoever would be president, when I was in the campaign, I talked about immunity. Immunity. We talked about it. So we're not surprised what the Supreme Court is doing. And God thank those members of the court who write brilliant dissents and remind us of what the democracy and the rule of law is supposed to be. You know.
Well, we thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to have you here to talk about.
All right, so you all heard it, okay? Everything she said, Trump's out here doing it, okay? He's doing everything that she said he was going to do and taking no prisoners, all right? Now, with that all being said, let's get into Pastor Jamal Bryant. DJ Big Six says she don't even know what to say. Christopher says she cannot win without the black vote. Misha said Kamala's cackling too much, went down from there. Y'all are terrible. Okay, so y'all aren't going to lighten up on Kamala now that Trump's in there dragging us all to hell in a handbasket? Mel said people just don't trust Kamala. And they trust Trump. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, after all the havoc and mayhem that Trump has caused, anybody has to be better than him. Okay? All right. Hold on. Dr. Doom said to prove she was black enough, she went on the Breakfast Club to talk about how much she used to smoke weed when she used to lock people up for smoking weed. Yes, beloved. Can we move past this? We all know the dirt she's done, beloveds. Okay? We all know the dirt she's done. All right? I know y'all are tired of her cackling and all that and everything, the washing the greens in the tub, but I promise you, I'd have rather had eaten her greens out of the tub than to deal with Trump and the stuff that he's doing right now. Wouldn't you? Oh, hell no, said she cleaned the greens right. If she had she cleaned the greens right, she would be president. Nessa G said, are you serious? We can trust Trump to do what for us? Exactly. Y'all talking about y'all can't trust Kamala. We darn sure can't trust Trump. She's better than he is on any given Sunday. Okay. Mm-mm. Okay, this is all crazy. Anywho, let us continue because I want you all to hear Pastor Jamal Bryant dragging MAGA about Charlie Kirk. Okay, y'all know I love me some Pastor Jamal Bryant. Y'all know that, right? This is one of the few pastors that I listen to because some of them be out here just doing the most as far as it pertains to being raccoons. Okay.
In a tragic death, you cannot rewrite somebody's life. And I am all the more concerned about how America and the media is trying to remix a life of racism and white supremacy that went forth unchecked. We cannot say somebody who called Ketanji Brown a DEI hire as somebody who is the face of Christendom when the person who said it dropped out of community college. You cannot say that the Civil Rights Bill should not have been passed and Black people were in a better place in the 1940s when they had segregation and did not.
Hold on, let me stop right here. DJ Big Six said, he is a womanizer with several illegitimate children. DJ Big Six, I'm going to have to ask you respectfully, what's your point? Okay, I don't know anything about any of that, but even if it is true, so what? Are you perfect? Because I'm not. Okay, I have some skeletons in my closet. Do you? I'm sure we all do. Okay, so sit down somewhere, DJ Big Six, and let us enjoy what the good pastor is speaking about, because I'm all here for it. Okay, Timothy said he also loves him. Thank you, Timothy. Okay, DJ Big Six seems to think that everybody other than himself must be perfect and without flaws and faults. But sadly, sir, we're not. Okay? He may have been a womanizer at some point. I don't know, but nor do I care. All right? This man's doing the Lord's work. Now you sit down somewhere and mind your business and let us enjoy the fruits of his work. Here we go.
I'd have freedom. You cannot say in no uncertain terms that George Floyd was a thug and Martin Luther King Jr. is not deserving of a holiday. My heart is mourning today from pastors and churches all over this country who are going to have moments of silence and celebrate somebody who is trying to take the nation backwards.
Pastor Jamal Bryant is a voice we have featured on this program previously.
God, help me in here. I'm concerned about all of these Negro preachers who've been, in fact, talking about that this man that was killed was the answer to Christ in the earth. Y'all ain't saying that. They having moments of silence in Black churches all over the country over a man that was racist and a white supremacist. How dare you compare him to Martin Luther King? The only thing that Charlie Chris and Martin Luther King got in common is both of them was killed by a white man. After that, they got nothing else in common.
Because he continues to speak out and use his platform the only way he knows how.
Cut the bull, ladies and gentlemen. America is going to have to cut the bull. Somehow or another, they can't find the Epstein list, and they know that Trump is right on it. But I'm going to pause right here because I want to know what white evangelical pastors are going to preach this morning against a president who is accused of sleeping with 3 14-year-olds, but they will not hold him accountable, but they claim that that's God's man. Y'all better cut the bull. He's going to bomb Iran, and then y'all going to say he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. He deserves a Peace Prize like I need a hole in my head. You better cut the bull. It's 1 year since the fake assassination attempt, and Congress nor Senate has launched one investigation yet. You better cut the bull. They get ready to hire ICE agents at $100,000 a year with a $40,000 signing bonus, but you won't pay teachers what they are worth. You better cut the bull. Been praying for me all week. You've been nervous all week, but I ain't afraid of the spooks that sat at the door. These runaway slaves hiding in the White House gonna throw my picture up thinking that I'm gonna be afraid. If you got real courage, don't show my picture. Show the picture of the one that fired the Black Joint Chief of Staffs from the military. If you gonna show a picture of the CEO of Target, Walmart, McDonald's, and Amazon that does not recognize black dollars or black business. If you gonna put up a picture of the state legislators in Florida that are banning black books. If you gonna put up the picture of the one who is stealing classified information from the IRS and Social Security. If you gonna put up a picture of those that don't want your mama to pay $35 for insulin and your child to pay $35 for inhaler. If you gonna put up a picture of those that are jailing children and separating families. I ain't ever scared. In case you forgot, I'm from the west side of Baltimore. If you got a problem, pull up on me. Those of y'all who are from the suburbs, those of y'all that come from a gated community, those of you who live out yonder, you ain't gonna understand this example. But when I used to live with my grandmother in the projects of New York, y'all ain't saying nothing. I discovered something that roaches only start running when you turn the lights on. As long as the lights are out, they gonna be comfortable eating your cereal. Y'all ain't saying nothing, climbing in your cupboard. But when you turn the light on, all of the roaches gotta start moving. I came to give a warning. Elon Musk, the light is getting ready to come on. Donald Trump, the light is getting ready to come on. JD Vance, the light is getting ready to come on. MAGA, the light is getting ready to come on. Welcome, because the roaches will check in, but they won't check out. The lights are coming on.
And when he sat down with Cam Newton,
how is it when a black man kill a black man, it's not really outrage?
Yeah.
But when a white man kills a black man, it's gonna start a riot.
The American media has manipulated the narrative of crime. Black on black crime is a made up thing. You have never heard white on white crime. Never heard the Asian on Asian crime. They have tried to fraction and compartmentalize us to feel as if where the crime is where we are.
Okay, go ahead.
The lead murderers in America are white men. The lead robbers in America are white men. The largest amount of rapists are white men. The highest number of domestic abusers is white men. The highest number of arrested pedophiles is white men.
No lies detected. And by the way, let me just say this, because Cam asked him, why is there outrage when a white man kills a black man, but not when a black man kills a black man? Well, there is outrage about that. They just don't show it on TV. Okay, you see, that's why the Minister Farrakhan had the Million Man March. Okay, things like this have been addressed in our community. They don't know it because it's not always put out there publicly. We talk about these things amongst ourselves, but the bigger thing is the fact that when a black person kills a black person, because we already know that crime is about proximity. So when a black person kills a black person, we know that if they get caught, they're going to prison. They're going to prison. But if a white person kills a black person, very often they get off. We know this. Okay, we know this. They're shown mercy and grace. Okay, their cases are often deemed as self-defense, like when the man shot the black guy in the back in Florida. Okay? That's the difference. If Pookie and Ray commit murder up in the hood, when they get caught, they're going to do the time for their crimes. But if Billy Bob and Brad commit crimes, okay, like Brock Turner raping that girl, well, they get off. Not all the time, but sometimes they do. Look at the case of Carmelo Anthony and the Metcalf twins. They attacked him. but he's the one in trouble because he defended himself. So that's why there's outrage. Okay? That answered your question, Cam, but let's continue.
Greatest number of drug dealers arrested is white men. But if you ask the average American who are the proponents of crime, is a black face to it. They're now trying to create this narrative that the immigrants are bringing in the crime because they never want to own up to what it is that they have done. Part of our responsibility is to pull the sheets off. We had a shooting here in Georgia not long ago. A young man named Colt, 14 years old, went and shot up his high school. His father's now being charged. Can you imagine what conversation me and you would be having if Colt was black and Colt's black father gave him a gun? The television, the internet would explode on the irresponsibility of black fathers. It's part of a larger historic original sin of America that always criminalizes and points their fingers at black men when it's absolutely not true.
Cam recalled a white person bringing this to his attention, and Pastor Bryant fact-checked that person in real time. Look, the facts remain, okay? Study after study shows that a vast majority of most nonviolent crimes are committed by people who are the same race as their victims. Indeed, the rate of white-on-white violent crime is 4 times the rate of black-on-white crime. That's via the Southern Poverty Law Center. Via a Department of Justice report, white people commit crimes against other white people at about the same rate that black people do against other black people. But despite the numbers, no one discusses white-on-white crime. This is something that we have discussed for years, and why in that Cam Newton interview, Pastor Bryant is right. He is right. From News One, the black-on-black crime rhetoric perpetuates stereotypes and diverts attention away from addressing the root causes of crime, such as socioeconomic disparities and lack of access to quality education and opportunities. To have a meaningful discussion about crime, it's important to consider these factors. Exactly. Teen Vogue would add, poor black people and poor white people are found to commit violent crimes at similar rates. 46.4% for white people, 43.4% for black people. I bet you didn't know that. With the clear connection between poverty and crime rates, and the fact that the poverty rate for black Americans, 20.8 in 2018, is more than twice the poverty rate for white Americans, 8.1%. It's obvious that anyone who truly cares about lowering the crime rate in the states would spend their time and resources working to eradicate poverty. Yet look at where our priorities are. They are at getting rid of Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, the devil's in the details, man. This is absurd what's happening.
No lies detected. Okay, no lies detected. All right. And that's what Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point, should have been doing if you ask me. That's just my opinion. Okay? They should have been focusing on the crime in their communities, not worried about what we're over here doing, because there's been multiple shootings since his death. And unfortunately, that's how he lost his life. Okay, from a shooting. And that too was white on white crime. All right? That was white on white crime. Now, let's have our lifelines, and then I'm out of here because I will be back this evening, beloveds. I will be back this evening at 7 o'clock. I'm having a guest on here. We're going to talk about some things, so you all don't want to miss it. All right? Make sure you tune in at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so now let's talk about this bacteria. Nightmare drug-resistant bacteria cases are rising in U.S. Grave danger. This was reported 13 hours ago. Infection rates from nightmare drug-resistant bacteria have skyrocketed in the United States, according to scientists. They've warned us as of this week. Cases of patients infected with the gnarly bacteria rose an alarming 70% between 2019 and 2023, according to a new report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention scientists. Now, difficult to treat bacteria with the NDM gene drove the sharp increase, according to researchers in a published report as of Tuesday. Now, they say only 2 antibiotics can treat this type of infection, and the expensive drugs must be administered to patients intravenously, according to researchers. The bacteria with the gene were once considered exotic and typically occurred in a small sample size of patients overseas. Although the number of cases remains relatively small, infections across the nation have still jumped more than 5-fold in recent years, according to reports. Are y'all listening? Keep those dirty little hands washed. Keep you some sanitizer, okay, in your purse, pocket, briefcase, whatever, backpack. Now, the rise of NDMs in the U.S. is a grave danger and very worrisome, says David Weiss, an Emory University infectious disease researcher. He says it's likely many people are unrecognized carriers of the drug-resistant bacteria, which could lead to community spread. Patients who enter doctors' offices for infections long considered routine and easy to treat, such as urinary tract infections, they could experience chronic problems if infected with the bacteria. Okay, antimicrobial resistance occurs when germs such as bacteria and fungi become powerful enough to fight the drugs designed to kill them, according to scientists. Now, the misuse of antibiotics, such as not finishing a prescribed course of them or taking unnecessary prescriptions that don't kill the germs, is only fueling the rise. And in recent years, the CDC has drawn attention to nightmare bacteria, okay, resistant to a wide range of antibiotics, including carbapenems. I know I'm saying that wrong. Carbapenems, okay, a class of antibiotics for last resort serious infections. Now, researchers counted 4,341 cases of the carbapenem resistant bacterial infections from 29 states in 2023, with 1,831 of them, okay, the NDM gene variety. Now, the researchers did not say how many of the infected people died. Okay, the rate of the carbapenem resistant infections rose from just under 2 per 100,000 people in 2019 to more than 3 per 100,000 people in 2023. That's an increase of 69%. The rate of NDM cases alone skyrocketed from around 0.25 to 1.35, a shocking increase of 460%. Okay, are y'all hearing this? So you need to be careful and making sure, especially if you have children, that they're washing their nasty little hands, because y'all know how kids are. Kids go outside, play in the dirt, come in, touching on their food and all that stuff. Don't wash those nasty little hands, catching all kinds of bacteria and whatnot. Okay? These things can be very dangerous, and especially when they're resistant to antibiotics. So with that all being said, and the way that word is carbapenem. Okay, I had to double check. Carbapenem. Okay, so now with that all being said, retired federal police officer Carol Banks says, "Great news show, Professor Shakur." Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you, and thank you for your kind words and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this broadcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to come back at 7 p.m. Even if you don't get a notification, come back to the channel at 7 o'clock, because we're going to be here. All right. And so that all been said, enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Until next time, peace.
Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hot artist right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece. This time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got